Many thanks to True Local for helping out with this video. Very rarely do I step into a car that's as complicated and features-rich as this Volvo XC60 Polestar Engineered. Now, I'm pretty good with cars. I understand the beginning and end of most components. It is my job to know what's going on in the car world, and it's how I've spent the free time for pretty much all of my life. I have always loved reading and learning about cars, but this is the first time that I've stepped into a vehicle and not been entirely sure what's going on. Just to get the basics out of the way, it has a 4-cylinder engine that is supercharged and turbocharged with 2 electric motors, an 11.6 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack, and is also a plug-in hybrid performance compact crossover that costs pretty much the same money as a BMW X3 M. So I'm going to break this video down into segments, into chapters, to try and focus specifically on one area of the car, because there's a lot to address. I can already see this being a very long video, and I haven't even started editing it yet. So first of all, I'm going to talk about all of the components within this car and how it all integrates together. Then I'm going to talk about how it drives, and an element of the driving with this vehicle that I think is potentially quite dangerous and I think is really important to address. Then I want to talk about the interior and the technology, and of course I'll wrap it up by placing this vehicle in my ranking system to see how it compares against other performance compact crossovers. So let's put the thing into drive and let's go for a drive. Before I do that, I'm sure you would agree with me that supporting small, locally run businesses is more important than ever. So that's why True Local is helping out with today's video. True Local is a Canadian-owned and operated company that delivers high-quality meat and many other products straight to your front door. On their website, you can find dozens of products from locally sourced producers that can be sent to your house on a regular basis. There's absolutely no commitment when it comes to True Local. You can pause, skip, or cancel your subscription at any time. And what they're offering in today's video is, if you're a brand new customer and you're buying your first box to be sent within Canada, you can get a pound of bacon added in for free. All you need to do is follow the link in the description down below and use the code that's on screen right now when you reach the checkout. If you want to find out more about their business, I highly recommend that you read through their websites of truelocal.ca or truelocalusa.com, so you can find out more of the relationships that they have with the farmers and how their products on their website are sourced. Now, let's get back to the video. So let's put some numbers to the basics of this vehicle. The total peak output of this power plant is 415 horsepower and 494 pound-feet of torque. There's a few ways that you can change around the driving style of this XC60 and how the system can be most beneficial for you in any given circumstance. So let's talk about, first of all, the drive modes, because with the little swivel wheel that you have underneath your start-stop rotator knob thing, you have a few different driving modes. You've got constant all-wheel drive, pure, hybrid, individual, Polestar Engineered mode, and then the rough road setting. So the most important thing to understand about the integration between the battery electric components and the gasoline components is that for the rear wheels, they're strictly driven by the electric motor. So if you're in a situation like today where roads are very wet, probably don't have the best traction, given that we are on some sport performance oriented tires, then you'll probably want to keep the thing in all-wheel drive. That will always have the front wheels turning and the rear wheels turning with their respective power plants. Then you go into pure mode, which is really focusing on getting as much pure electric driving as you possibly can. And if you want to play the game of being as eco-friendly as possible on your daily commute, it's stubborn in the right way. Where I will put this mode right now into pure, you'll see that you have quite a lot more battery electric performance given to you, and you don't have to be incredibly gentle with the throttle pedal to get moving. I'm putting a fair amount of poke in it right now, but it's holding just before the electric motor needs to engage. But if I was ever in a situation where I really need to take off, the engine will fire up fast enough so I can get myself out of any potentially tricky situation. Hybrid mode is going to give you a little bit of electric drive, but focus on just making life as easy as it can be. Then Polestar Engineered is using all of the available power at every given point in time to maximize performance. For the 11.6 kilowatt hour battery pack, you can charge it up on the 220 volt outlet in 2.5 hours, and it should give you 50 kilometers of pure electric driving if you are gentle on the throttle. Outside of all of those distinct driving modes, you have a few other ways to change around the driving feel of the Polestar Engineered. First of all, with the gear selector, you can knock back one more to get into a more aggressive brake regeneration mode, which of course it is a plug-in hybrid, and alongside any hybridized technology, it's going to have that regenerative braking feature that works pretty well to put just a little bit more juice back into the battery pack. It won't take you to a complete stop. I've noticed that the regenerative braking kind of cuts out around 10 kilometers an hour. There's another two things that you can do with the battery. Sliding the 12.3-inch touchscreen over to the left, you'll have two options up above for hold and charge. Charge is that when you're driving along doing any kind of regular driving, separate from the regenerative braking system, the engine is being a generator to help put some electricity into the battery pack. And that would be great when you're going on the highway, because all EVs tend to suffer with highway performance. They are more beneficial in your daily commute through town or going to the grocery shop, that kind of a thing. So I really like how I can manually change that feature to use when I like it, but then also there's a hold mode. So if you ever wanted to reserve that little bit of battery power to crawl around quietly in your neighborhood or pull into the parking lot without anybody noticing, that feature's there for you. Maybe in the future, when governments restrict internal combustion engines to enter their city center and EV power is the only way that you can go downtown for a big office meeting, this is almost like a future-proofing to that idea. So how long have I been driving this car now, and I haven't even discussed what it is like to drive? I mean, as a performance vehicle or a performance-oriented vehicle, that's got to be the most important thing, right? Well, I just don't think that is what Polestar is trying to achieve with this XC60. And if you don't know the whole story as to who Polestar is, once upon a time, and I suppose they still are, they were a Swedish racing division that often used Volvos in their touring racing. And with the integration of Volvo cars, you would often see Polestar Engineered badged vehicles with a little blue badge on the back, but they have made some more dedicated vehicles in the past, and now Polestar is its own company, making the Polestar 1, very similar technology to what's in this XC60, a very limited high-performance luxury coupe, and now they're coming out with the Polestar 2, which is a Tesla Model 3 EV fighter. You can very quickly tell there's a distinct difference driving this over a regular XC60. The suspension has manually adjustable Öhlins dampers for the front and rear with these golden knobs that are under the bonnet. I played around with them and I honestly can't find that much of a difference going up and down the same roads. I'm sure they work, I just can't feel that big of a difference. But the ride quality is significantly more rigid than what it is in a regular XC60. If you're the traditional Volvo buyer, you've gone from generation to generation, and then you have a go in one of these, you'd feel like you've been put into a car from a totally different brand and totally different ideology towards setting up a car. It's not intolerable, but I just don't think that you can bypass this as sort of like the halfway house between a normal and a performance car, the same way that A, S, and RS models of Audi. This very much feels like a top dog performance vehicle. It still features an 8-speed automatic transmission, and you've got these kind of cheap plastic paddles behind the steering wheel, and they react well enough. Upshifting is a lot more consistent and smarter than what downshifting is. The steering as well, even though it has the same Volvo lightness, it's very quick to react. And with the acceleration, there's so many different elements you can feel from just a simple pull away from a stoplight. First, have the electric motors taking you off of the line, because that's where the torque and the efficiency of an electric motor is the most powerful. But just as that kind of dies away, the supercharged engine is now spooling up the turbo. So it's like you go from stage 1 to stage 2 in terms of power delivery. And this is one of the many reasons why I'm finding it just so hard to communicate what this car is like, because there's so many different elements I'm experiencing by just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. The engine itself, though, is quite rough, and when you're driving about with it engaged, you can hear a little bit of the rattliness to it, but it isn't until you put down a window and realize how well isolated this Volvo is. Does it sound really quite bad? It just sounds like you've put gravel in a food blender. Just as you drive about with the motor engaged, it happily blends in the background with no aggravation. But there is one very significant issue that I have with driving this vehicle that I believe needs to be addressed, not only for you if you're looking to buy this vehicle or you know someone that has, but for the manufacturer as well. Volvo, I'm telling you that there's something really wrong with how this car performs on a little bit of a gravelly patch road. Because, like I mentioned earlier, the front wheels and the rear wheels aren't connected at all in terms of the driveline, I've noticed something quite strange when you go on a gravelly bit of road. I can feel the front wheels and the rear wheels doing a very different thing. And of course, not many people are going to drive on gravel roads on day-to-day occasion. It's probably, you know, going up for a hiking trail or something. But I think it is genuinely concerning when you take your foot off the throttle and you do a little bit of this motion, because the front wheels feel like they're turning at a different speed to what the rear wheels are. The back end steps out and feels quite unpredictable. I'm not really able to show this on camera. It's very much from the seat of my pants. I can feel the back stepping to the left as I'm turning to the right, and I hope that it's something to do with the software and the engine management and all the very complicated things that are in this Volvo aren't lining up quite right. Now, this is a gravel road situation on some performance-oriented tires, but is this going to be the exact same feeling when you have winter tires on a very powdery, snowed road? I don't know. So Volvo and all of the customers that might own this vehicle, or maybe even the other T8e all-wheel drive systems, I really want to hear if you are aware of this issue and if there's anything that you've done to solve it or bypass it. Outside of performance driving, it does feel like a regular Volvo on the highway, very refined, top-notch quality, and the interior of this XC60 does get a few nice touches. Obviously, you've noticed the golden seat belts, which are pretty damn cool, but there's some other cool things in here, like this fabric material that's been used on the seats as well as in the door cards, the front and the back as well, and it just adds something new to a cabin space, where I'm sure putting more leather in those spaces would look fine. This just makes it have a little more personality somehow. When I last tested out the XC60, it was in the Inscription T6 form, and I was fairly convinced it's the best compact crossover that money can buy right now. It feels so much more different than the German competition, with its own personality and charm, and with a very generous back seat space. I'm convinced that anybody my height, I'm 6'4", could go on a very long journey in any of the outboarding seats of this car with no complaints at all. And if you're shopping for the Polestar, it doesn't really have many options allocated towards it. Almost everything is included. The only things you're going to have to choose is if you want the larger 22-inch wheels, of which you see on this model. 21-inch is our standard, and they actually have the exact same design. And the Polestar Engineered doesn't really shout about itself. It has a few different exterior design elements. You'll see the golden brake calipers and the blacked out trim. There's also a little bit of a wheel arch extender tacked on, but I think this slips under the radar very effectively. I'm sure this is a lengthy video, but that is, I think, everything I wanted to say about the XC60 Polestar Engineered. A complicated car, certainly not for everyone, but I have enjoyed my time living with it, I am just a little bit torn on who it's for, why it exists, and if it really does stack up against an X3 M. For performance and driving engagement, definitely not. But maybe you're a performance car guy that needs a plug-in hybrid. Then there's nothing really else on the market out there for you. So I wish I could spend more time with this car. I would like to live with it for a month or so, because that's just how complex it is. Living with it and showing it off to people would be a fantastic joy, but just the time that I've spent with it so far, it's been a pleasure. So there you have it. That's all of my thoughts regarding the 2020 Volvo XC60 Polestar Engineered. A very complicated car that I really do feel like I need to spend an extended period of time behind the wheel to fully understand if it's the right vehicle for you. But given that the price tag goes up directly against something like a GLC63 or a BMW X3 M, I do feel as though it's a bit of a hard sell for the traditional customers of those two previously stated vehicles. But the Volvo is something entirely different. So due to that reasoning, I think this is a vehicle that you should test drive if you are in the market for the highest end performance version of a compact crossover. If you're looking just for the plug-in hybrid benefits, then you're going to end up with the XC60 inscription with its T8e all-wheel drive. But I have really enjoyed my time with this Volvo. Like I said, I wouldn't mind a little more with it too. So many thanks go off to Valentine Volvo that sent this vehicle off to me so I could review it. All of their information is linked down below. Thank you very much for watching this long-winded video. If you wouldn't mind liking, sharing, and subscribing, all of that really makes my effort put in today worthwhile. Thanks a lot. Hope to see you again on the channel soon.